welcome back to Home and Gift Virtual. We really hope you enjoyed this morning's sessions. We're now joined by a panel discussing collaborative retail environment initiatives post-COVID-19. Our panel will explore partnering and collaborating with other brands and businesses to expand your message, reach new audiences, taking cues from the brands who successfully make this happen in the retail environment. With expert insight and immediately actionable takeaways will help you plan an autumn and winter strategy for your bricks and mortar and online store. It's my pleasure to introduce you to India Maan, jewellery designer of Harrogate, and Catherine Erdley, founder of Future Retail. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much, Abigail. It's fantastic to be here. Just before we get started, I want to make you aware of two things. First of all, we will be having a Q&A at the end of the session, but please don't feel like you have to keep your questions until then. There is a Q&A chat function down here that you are welcome to put your questions into at any time. So let's get started. My name is Catherine Erdley. I'm a retail consultant, and I'm now going to ask India to introduce herself.
Hi, thank you, Catherine. I design and make one-of-a-kind jewellery. I'm based in Harrogate. My business is based in the Montpellier Quarter, and the jewellery that we make, it's all handmade. It's made from recycled gold and silver, and we source ethical, or the jewellery is made from ethically sourced gemstones, and I produce small collections 3 or 4 times a year. They're available online and they're available in the Harrogate boutique, and I have a number of retail collaborations.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, India. And if any of you are visiting Harrogate, then do pop in and see India's shop because it is beautiful. So India, collaboration over competition. It's one of those phrases, if you like, that we hear bandied around an awful lot. But what does that actually mean to you? What does that look like in reality for your business?
It's important that the collaboration, there's obviously a commercial aspect to it, but more importantly, I think there's got to be shared values. So a great example of where a collaboration's worked for me is with Young British Designers. So we opened the Harrogate store in 2018, in June 2018. And it's, Harrogate's a big town, it's quite a big town. But Montpellier is more of it's quite arty. There's lots of cafes and restaurants, and it's a shopping area. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to make a bigger noise as we open. Okay, we're another jeweler. I wanted to try and push footfall very early on. Mm-hmm. So we got together with Young British Designers, and for people who don't know Young British Designers, it's an online store, and they are known in the fashion press as the net-a-porter book for independent design labels.
Fantastic.
And so we had, we ticked lots of boxes. We have shared values, and we have shared goals as well for collaboration. And from my point of view, the designers that they use, again, we have shared values with the designers. So Deborah, the owner of YBD, she curates the designers from maybe London Fashion Week and other, relationships that she's got. But they are, first and foremost, indie labels. They are all designed, their studio is in the UK, so they're British based, and they are about slow fashion. It's not fast fashion at all. And it's the sort of clothes that you're not going to throw away. There's a certain sort of price level. The materials are sustainable. So a lot of things clicked, and there's it's a collaboration where we're joined at various points. And we have a shared vision, if you like, as to where the relationship's going.
Oh yeah, no, I love that. So it's really fantastic for you because it's a footfall generator. It's getting an extra interest and into the shop. But then on the flip side, for the designers, it's shop space, right, which is really key, especially in fashion where people want to touch and feel. and the chance to collaborate with a really supportive organisation. Is that a fair summary?
It is, yeah. As you say, from my point of view, it's footfall. So what we do is, rather than bring in 6 rails of, the seasonal clothes, we're constantly changing and evolving the. So we might have one rail of 2 or 3 designers, but there's a theme each quarter, and we constantly change the designers that we bring in from YBD. Generally, because Deborah knows what's coming through, she leads that, but it's collaborative. We discuss what we're going to do, what theme it is, and I give, they have the space. We then extended. We first of all started with clothes, and with a small number of designers, and we then extended. So now we've got shoes, we've got bags, scarves, accessories. Right. I have YBD jewelers in cabinets as well. And so I say it's there's always something fresh, there's always something new. And we've got some fantastic fashion retailers in Harrogate, quite exclusive ones with really well, with great designer brands. And so we don't tread on their toes, it's just different. The designers I have in store generally aren't available elsewhere in Harrogate, so it brings people in. Right. And I think that, it's evolving. So whilst they're constantly in the store, we treat it like a pop-up, so that and it's communicated like a pop-up as well.
So you get that sense of urgency as well, so people have a fresh reason to come and a fresh reason to visit, and you've got the exclusivity. And I think you've touched on so many great pieces here about collaboration, because I think the best collaborations, they work as sort of symbiotic relationships. It's beneficial to you, but it's beneficial to them as well. And you're getting something really special, as well as being able to offer support to these designers. I just want to touch on something that you mentioned at the beginning, which was about your shared vision. And one of the questions I had was, what do you think the keys to success for a good collaboration? And do you think vision makes up part of that, most of it, all of it?
I think at the beginning we were realistic, and that there were no commercial goals. It was more about it was probably more a bit touchy-feely. It was about the fact that they had a physical space, and there was a connection between the offerings. So, sorry, what was the actual question?
What do you think are the keys to success for a great collaboration?
I think it's it's communicating, and it's Deborah and I talk a lot, and she gets, and it's a passion. She's very passionate about her designers, and I have a real passion for YBD. I'm one of their customers. I buy from them, and also I am on their online site, so I'm one of their designers as well. But it is having it's become a friendship as well. So I think more importantly than the commercial aspect initially, it was for me, it was just feeling that somebody understood where I wanted my business to go, and somebody understood the values behind my jewellery. She's a great customer of mine as well. So there's a lot more. All I can say is that there's a real creative passion between us about what we're doing, where we're going, and her YBD is a global brand. It's they sell online. They're selling into the States and the Far East, and they're very much they're well known in this country. So yes. It is. I think it's that passion. It's more than anything else.
Yes, it's so interesting you say that. I work with a lot of smaller independent retailers and brands, and we often talk about collaborations as one of those ways of getting your your business in front of more people, in front of but what's really key is that and it's great to hear you say this because it reinforces what I always tell my clients, is that it's got to be a match. It's got to be it's not about how big the other person is. You could collaborate with a huge brand, which obviously has its own benefits, but actually if you collaborate with a brand that's around the same size as you or a bit bigger, but you've got the exact perfect match for the audience, it's like who else speaks to the same type of people that you speak to? And one of the easiest ways to work that out is, are you sharing your values? So you talked a lot about sustainability, about that you're both producing high quality products with a real emphasis on that sustainability, the slow fashion, the things that aren't just throwaway, that these are really beautiful timeless pieces. And it sounds like that's why this collaboration has been so good. So if anyone's watching this and they're trying to figure out, well, who do I collaborate with, would you say that look for people who share your values and your passion?
Yeah, that's it is a good point actually, that if I really drill down, that the ladies who come in and they choose YBD, choosing if you come in and you choose a piece of jewelry, they're not choosing something that they're just going to wear in the summer. It's going to last a long time, and they market their clothes in the same way. So you're buying almost. We had a season where we called it like it was vintage, and it's about buying something that you're going to have it forever.
Yes.
So that's, again, I think that's where it's a shared value, and it's really important, and we keep communicating. So when we build the sort of the communication and how we're going to talk about this season or the quarter, there are key messages that we choose. And again, as you said at the outset, I deal with the decision makers. They're the founders of YBD, and so we're both able to make we both make decisions, and we're making them quickly, and we're both very flexible. And if a new designer comes on board, then we can use the shop to promote them locally. That sort of thing.
And I really love what you said there about the messaging as well, because that's also something we were talking about just before we went on air. We talked about the stories behind products and how when people are purchasing now, that storytelling element is becoming a bigger and bigger piece of the purchasing just buyer's journey. So I love the fact that you were talking about the collaboration. Almost one of the first things you do is work out not just the mechanics of how it's all going to work, but the kind of messaging and the storytelling. Do you think that's a really key element of it too?
It is, because people, so when they're looking at the clothes are not inexpensive. They are the same sort of price level as your European design labels. They are the price level you'd expect them to be, because the designers only do short runs of clothes. They're not mass producing, and so they're around about the £400-500 mark. And so when I'm talking to customers who come in and they're interested in YBD, I'm able to talk to them about not just YBD story, but the individual designers. And a lot of them, whilst their names are not necessarily well known, they have learnt their craft with big design houses. And so it's important that I talk that through, because it reinforces the designer credentials. And it's like in some ways, it's like an art curator. The people at YBD the owner is very good at finding the next big designer. And so a lot of ladies love the fact that they're discovering that. And so it is important. I can talk about my own brand and the jewellery and where it comes from, but you've got to be able to share the same backstory with the people you're collaborating with. I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So again, if anyone's watching is thinking about how you collaborate, then as well as working out the mechanics of how it's all going to work, then making sure that you're sharing those stories, because actually that was something else that I wanted to come on to. So, it's fantastic to collaborate with other businesses, but, how do you collaborate internally in a way for the benefit of the customer. So I know that, for example, you've mentioned before, customer service is such a critical part of selling, for example, your jewellery. So talk us through a little bit what customer service looks like when you're collaborating, or how do you try and get the best for your customer?
I suppose it comes down to the devil's in the detail. You've just got to, for the point that customer steps into your store, you are you're the point of contact for the designer or for whoever you're collaborating with. So you have got to be as knowledgeable as if they were talking directly to them. And so, as I said to you before, I know the designers that from YBD, from Young British Designers. I know their backstory. I know the inspiration behind the collections. I know about the materials and the textiles, because everybody asks something different. So I try and put myself in the place of, if somebody was selling my jewellery, what would I want them to say? What would I want them to know about? And try and second guess the clients. And, my customers are very sophisticated women who love fashion and love jewellery. So you've got to be able to talk and make them feel that, they're part of that story. And because collaboration is all about engaging and getting that consumer engaged with your brand and with your collaborative brands. So you've got to have the knowledge and the passion to talk about it.
Fantastic. Yes, and that's a really good point that you were making, because it's almost like when you're choosing, because that's the sort of, there's so many positives about collaborating, right? You get your name in front of more people, you get that buzz, that excitement, but sort of the flip side, as you said, is that you're trusting, in the same way that YBD are entrusting you with their designers, that when you mentioned you have other retail partnerships, then you're trusting those retailers with your jewellery. So it's about, I think collaboration is about that real synergy between your messaging, between your values, where you've got the same audience, but then you also have to really trust. There's a huge amount of trust, would you say, with collaborating?
Yeah, I would. Because, it's there is trust in that. You've got to, particularly with the jewellery, it's just, you're asking someone to spend an awful lot of money on a piece of jewellery. So, and a lot of people today as well want to know that it's ethically sourced, and they want to know how it's sourced, the provenance of the gemstones. It's a big issue because everybody's heard about the impact of gold mining and the impact of diamond mining. So, and generally these stones come from countries where it's difficult to trace back the provenance. Right. So, I think it's when I train or I build the story with partners, it's got to be, there are certain things that you pull out and that you're able to trust them to talk through.
Yeah, but that's interesting what you're saying there about training as well. It's like a collaboration, it's got to be well thought through, and you've got to help them help you. You've got to kind of walk them through the steps so that you're giving them the tools, you're giving them the stories, you're giving them the ability really to sell your products.
And yes, and I think as well, what I've found is that from my point of view with the product I've got, with the offering, the training isn't just like 1 hour and bang, it's done. It's and I hate to use the word, but it is much more collaborative. Yes. So I tend to go in store. I work closely with them, and I show them how to work with customers, and it's just. And it's constantly building that relationship. I think as well, for me, collaboration isn't just for 3 months. It's actually, it's got to be longer term, because and so I mentioned the YB, the Young British Designers collaboration. That's now been going on for almost 2.5, nearly 3 years.
Wow.
And it gets stronger and stronger. And obviously, people now know that they are there in store. So it's a much, I think it's got to be a long-term relationship to make it work.
Absolutely. No, that's great advice. So rather than doing lots of collaborations with lots of different people, it's much better to go kind of deeper and be more invested. As you said, it's relationship building, right? You've got to find a partner who really shares your values and has a similar customer to you and is willing to work with you to really sell your products in the same way that you would sell your products. The ideal situation.
Absolutely. I think because I'm a small independent business, that's what works for me. Because I've put a lot of time and a lot of, there's a lot of investment in that relationship, and not necessarily just financial, but actually a lot of personal time as well. So in order to reap the rewards from that, I just feel that it's got to be longer term.
Sure, of course. Just want to come on to sort of one last point about collaborations, because we've sort of touched on this when we've discussed before today, but it's a little bit about some of the intangible benefits. So you talked about, obviously, commercial, it's got to be about driving sales. But you've mentioned before you've done collaborative events, for example, with other businesses in Harrogate, and just sort of some of the excitement generating. And also, so if you could just maybe tell us a little bit about, how does collaboration increase excitement around brand?
I think increasingly consumers when they shop, their shopping habits are changing. So the fact that, and the time that they want to shop is changing. So Christmas is a really good example of, you want something sociable and you want something a little bit interesting. And so at Christmas 2019, a group of us in the Montpellier area of Harrogate hired a space in a bar in town, and everybody, there was probably 8 or 9 of the guys in Harrogate, all quite different. So there was the barbers, there was a spa brand. Every one of us did something
fantastic. Real mix.
Yeah, and there was a pop-up bar. There was some Harrogate, the couple of Harrogate catering companies and sandwich places. They had some fantastic vegan food, and they were going around. So it was very, very sociable. There was a photographer, a videographer, and each one of us. So we started talking about it probably in about September, October. It was very well planned. Everybody was given some tasks so that there was one individual that managed the project. And I think it's important that you have that person who's leading it and pulling it all together, because otherwise it would never have happened. We were all like herding cats, bringing them all together.
Yeah.
Keeping them all on the same page as well. This is what the event is about, and it's a shared collaboration, so no one shop was bigger than the other one. But it was great fun. And we were all tasked with marketing to our customer base.
Yeah.
And we were, I was talking to local influencers as well. And so we got a buzz going about it. And on the evening, it was, you just couldn't move. It was really, really busy. And again, it was just 2 hours. But everybody said afterwards, as we did the debrief, everybody, was really pleased with the results. There was a lot of, as you'd expect from that event, cross-pollination of customers. So whilst anybody who lives in Harrogate, anyone who's listening who lives in Harrogate, no, it's not, Montpellier is not a big area. It's a really nice community of independent shops, but it might be that you go to one shop in the area and you don't go to the others. So suddenly there's a lot of cross-selling going on, which is the whole point of that, of the exercise.
Fantastic. Well, I feel like we've covered some real great gems here. I've been scribbling down some notes, India. So I have, if you're watching, you're thinking about collaborating, that it's important to share your stories, to find people who are willing to take on your stories and give you theirs. Finding somebody who really fits your values, ideally building a long-term relationship. That customer service and engaging your customer is really key. And of course, all of that messaging, agreeing the messaging really helps when you're doing collaboration. And then really just creating a buzz, making it fun, and using collaboration as a way to get some cross-pollination and to get your business out in front of more people. So do you think I got it all?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right, well, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for watching, and now we're going to move on to questions.